You won't believe what everyone gets wrong about space travel. We think sleek rockets, but the very first attempt? It wasn't just ridiculed by the New York Times as a strain on credulity. They practically labeled its inventor a lunatic. Moonman for daring to suggest rockets worked in space. Yet, just 6 years later, with a contraption that looked like plumbing gone wrong, he proved them all spectacularly, if briefly, wrong. Missing this story means missing the true dawn of the space age. This is the captivating story of Robert H. Goddard, a man whose pioneering spirit totally launched humanity's journey to the stars. And get this, it wasn't with a bang, but with a sputtering little liftoff from his aunt's snowy cabbage patch. Forget those sleek, polished rockets we see today. The Saturn V, the Space Shuttle, SpaceX's Starship, the very first liquid-fueled rocket, the great-great-grandparent of every space probe and moon landing, looked less like a technological marvel and more like, well, a plumber's nightmare. It flew for a mere 2.5 seconds, reached a whopping altitude of 41 feet, and then just unceremoniously belly-flopped 184 feet away. Yet, those few seconds, my dears, changed everything. Born in Massachusetts in 1882, Robert Goddard was a dreamer from childhood, utterly fascinated by space travel. He practically inhaled H.G. Wells and Jules Verne. But unlike others, he didn't just dream. He calculated. He theorized. He believed with all his heart. By 1909, while still in college, he was already envisioning rockets powered by liquid propellants, a truly radical idea back then. For context, he had even patented a liquid-fueled rocket way back in 1914. But by 1921, he was deep into the nitty-gritty of practical engine development. But Goddard's brilliance was matched only by his shy, introverted nature and the profound skepticism of the entire world around him. In the early 20th century, rockets were largely seen as glorified fireworks or, at best, quirky military curiosities from World War I. The very idea of using them to leave Earth's atmosphere? Oh, honey, that was pure science fiction, the stuff of pulpy novels, not actual serious science. Then, 1920 delivered a crushing blow. Goddard had published a report suggesting rockets could reach extreme altitudes, even, gasp, the moon. The New York Times, a huge pillar of journalistic authority, responded with a scathing editorial, a severe strain on credulity. Ouch! If the biggest newspaper called your moon dreams ludicrous, would you have given up? Let me know in the comments. They boldly declared with venomous certainty that Goddard only seems to lack the knowledge ladled out daily in high schools, claiming rockets couldn't possibly work in the vacuum of space. The implication was crystal clear. The man was either a total fraud or just plain foolish. The press quickly latched onto a new, totally derisive nickname for him: Moonman. Can you even imagine? This public humiliation wounded Goddard deeply. He became even more solitary, more secretive. The scientific establishment, already wary, largely distanced themselves. But instead of breaking him, all that ridicule just hardened his resolve. He retreated into his workshops, fueled by pure obsession and an unshakable belief that he was absolutely right. Failure, for Goddard, was simply more data to crunch. For years, he toiled, mostly alone, in Worcester, Massachusetts. He experimented with different fuels, different designs, enduring countless setbacks, little explosions, and the never-ending financial strain. He meticulously documented every single failed test, every tiny adjustment. He was like a man possessed, driven by the whispered promise of the cosmos. Think about that for a moment. One man, against the established wisdom of his time, with minimal resources, trying to invent something that literally defied gravity and conventional thought. Could you have persisted through that kind of public mockery and scientific isolation? By 1921, he was heavily engaged in developing practical liquid-fueled engines, believing they offered the key to greater power and control. Gasoline and liquid oxygen, volatile, dangerous, and utterly revolutionary as rocket propellants. The big day was March 16, 1926. The location? Auburn, Massachusetts, on his Aunt Effie's farm. A stark, snowy field, thankfully far from prying eyes. The audience? His wonderfully supportive wife, Esther. His loyal assistant, Henry Sachs, and possibly his cousin Arthur. The contraption they faced was closer to 4 or 5 feet tall, a spindly arrangement of pipes, valves, and a combustion chamber at the top. Honestly, it looked more like an eccentric plumbing project than the true dawn of the space age. In his diary, Goddard wrote, "The first flight with a liquid propellant rocket was made today. The rocket rose at 2:30 p.m. to a height of 41 feet and landed 184 feet away, traveling at a velocity of about 60 miles per hour." Imagine the anticipation. A hiss, a tremor, then a positively deafening roar. Flames erupted. The world's very first liquid-fueled rocket, a testament to raw persistence, trembled, then slowly, agonizingly lifted. For just 2.5 breathtaking seconds, it defied gravity, piercing the cold Massachusetts air, carrying the hopes of a silent, ridiculed visionary. And then, with a pathetic thud, it landed. Not on the moon, no, but right there in his Aunt Effie's cabbage patch. 41 feet, 2.5 seconds, 184 feet across the ground. Whew! Talk about a humble beginning for something that would eventually ferry humans across 250,000 miles of space. Compared to today's rockets, capable of launching satellites the size of school buses or sending probes to the furthest reaches of our solar system, Goddard's flying fish with a flat belly was crude, fragile, and almost comically ineffective. But that day, in that snowy field, Robert Goddard had done something truly profound. He had not only proven his doubters oh so wrong about the practicality of his invention, but also fundamentally validated the principles of liquid propulsion, which would eventually enable rockets to work in a vacuum. He had ignited the fuse of modern rocketry, demonstrating that liquid propulsion was not just some fantasy, but a tangible, controllable force. His work laid the fundamental groundwork for ballistic missiles, for intercontinental travel, and ultimately, for the very idea of putting humanity beyond Earth's grasp. Goddard never lived to see his ultimate vindication, bless him. He passed away in 1945, still largely unappreciated, his genius overshadowed by lingering skepticism and his own protective secrecy. But then, on July 17, 1969, as Apollo 11 was hurtling towards the moon, the New York Times published a remarkable correction. Imagine that, 49 years after their infamous editorial, they finally admitted their error, acknowledging that rockets do indeed work in a vacuum, gracefully retracting their earlier scathing judgment. The Moonman was no longer a figure of ridicule, but a true prophet. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What if Goddard had truly given up in the face of such public humiliation? Which impossible first do you think felt the most overwhelming for its inventor to achieve? If you're as fascinated by these trailblazers as I am, don't forget to hit that like button. It helps us unearth more of these phenomenal, forgotten histories.